Hey, how's it going? I'm Harrison Burns, and today we're going to be re-interviewing someone that we already had before, Dr. Tom Morris. Tom, thank you for joining me today.
It's good to be with you, Harrison.
So, I wanted to talk about something that's not really discussed a whole lot, a topic that not many people have either written books about or even generally discuss in day-to-day life, and it's when to start and stop talking when it comes to grief. When is the point in which you should begin to talk about it, and when is it okay or when is it right to stop talking about it so you don't get overwhelmed with these feelings?
Well, this, from my experience, is you can try to bring up the subject, but you can't expect the person to really engage in it unless they're ready to talk. Sounds simple, but the hard part is waiting or realizing that sometimes there's nothing you can do. You've got to wait till the person is ready to talk about it. Um, Oftentimes we would find it that there was a situation at school, somebody had lost someone, they were acting out. It was pretty obvious that there was an issue. But until that person was ready to talk about it, it's like pulling teeth. You can't it's like making a horse drink. You can take him to water, but you can't, if he's not hungry, not thirsty, you're not going to eat.
Yeah, of course.
Um, there have been young people that have had things that happened in their life as a child, and they weren't ready to talk about it until maybe high school or sometimes the end of high school. Not because they didn't have an opportunity to talk about it, but they just weren't ready. So as a parent or a friend, sometimes, unfortunately, all you can do is say, I'm here. If you want to talk about it, let me know.
Does that ever get frustrating to you when you know that somebody's dealing with something really heavy, but you can't do anything for them until they're ready to open up to you?
Yes, in a way, but see, I worked with probation kids for the first 20 years of my working with kids for 45 years. And you could talk about, something obvious. They had a theft problem. They'd stolen 20 cars, but they aren't ready to change. You realize sometimes you can't do anything unless they want to change. So I think, there's a lot of things in life that are like this. Or somebody who's an alcoholic. You have known it for years, but me knowing about it means absolutely nothing. You have to wait till the person who has the problem realizes that there is a problem, or what they say, hit bottom. You have to kind of wait till the impact of the death or the change or the divorce or the abandonment is something that they're ready to talk about.
So they
So
have to address it within their own mind first. And it's almost like coming to terms with something, right?
yeah, or just realizing I don't even know where to begin. Sometimes some people are very almost stubborn about, they want to take care of it themselves. I can manage this. I don't need anybody else. And others, they is before they die, they're on the ground begging for help. That I don't know what to do, but people just respond in so many different ways. And then the other thing is sometimes they will want to talk about it a little bit, but then they they shut down and shut you out. I've talked all I'm going to say, so don't bug me about this anymore. And you kind of have to wait until they're ready to talk about it again.
What's your response to that?
What?
What's your response to that? If they shut themselves off, what's your typical response, your typical go-to for that?
My initial one, when I started working with kids and when I was in my 20s, I was hurt. Like, oh, I've been hurt. I've been pushed out. But now I just realize that they're just not ready. And it's better to let them alone until they're ready to talk. Countless times counselors will call me and say that John or Alice or Bob or whatever the name is has just had a loss. So I'll go to the counseling office. They'll call the kid in. I tell them about the grief process and ask, are you interested in dealing with this? Some will say, yeah, I'll be there next week. But every once in a while, you'll have one. I think I'm good. I can take care of myself. And then sometimes, before they graduate, they're back and they have some questions and they want to talk some more. And others get involved in the group. You just don't know. Or sometimes they come to the group, they talk a few times, and then they shut down because now they're embarrassed that they have let everybody know about their problems or the broken relationships in their family. And they're not supposed to, some family cultures are such that you don't let that out. So that then they kind of close down and
internalize it,
or just pretend it's not there. Just kind of like what a drug or alcoholic would do with the problem. It's just denial. I don't need to do it with this anymore. It'll just go away. I can manage this. I've done this with other things. I got in fights or I stole things or whatever the situation is, and I got through it. So I'm going to get through this on my own. But sometimes it starts causing issues in their life that they can't control. And that's when they're willing to come and talk about it. Some of the people you've interviewed started out that way. They weren't really interested in coming. They come for their brother, or their counselor told them, so they come just for them because they kind of like them. And sometimes they'll come for a few weeks and then you won't see them again for a year or two.
That was actually something that I addressed with Ricky, the previous interview I just did. Ricky had an interesting perspective on it, and it was the isolationist viewpoint. So with him, he realized that a lot of his problems he was trying to solve, like you said, on their own. Like, I can handle this. It's fine. I'm not going to address it. It's perfectly okay. I've handled plenty of things before. But with him, he finally realized after talking about it, hindsight's always 20/20, but he realized after the fact, being an isolationist and shutting yourself off is the exact opposite of what you need to do in order to move past this problem. Getting yourself to talk about it and being social with others and relying on others when you need it is key to moving forward with anything in your life. And it's helpful in every sense of the word. But he didn't realize that at the time when he was going through things, because he was prideful and he was embarrassed that he let, in his eyes, letting other people know that he has a weakness, quote unquote, through his grief. And that weakness, especially for guys, is a big hindrance, because we always are expected in society to have this this show of, I'm a man, I can handle this on my own, I'm strong-willed, I don't need anyone else. And it's expected of us. But when we break down emotionally and we bottle everything up inside and we keep ourselves shut off and closed off from others in order to kind of give off this illusion of strength, it only adds to the weakness. And at that point, you break down even more. And eventually it comes to a breaking point, which is what happened with him.
Yeah. Or Steven, who you interviewed too, he came his freshman year and then he stopped coming because it was, he was kind of self-traumatized by sharing what was really going on in his life. And it, kind of embarrassed at the same time, but then he came back and really began to change. And like you say about Ricky really changed.
Yeah.
His brother was the one who was open to talking about these things first. Being twins, everything kind of eventually got communicated in a different way than I can fully understand. But it's true. It's kind of like talking to somebody about a point of view, and you can tell them your arguments for the way you think, but until they're ready to think it through and deal with what you've told them about the reality of or how you understand the world, philosophy or whatever. It's if you're discussing a different point of view on a social issue, if you can't even discuss it, you just shut down. That's how a lot of them are. They just, you don't agree with me, so I'm not going to think like you. And especially if they grew up in a culture that's different, like a gang culture family, or a family from a culture from another country that doesn't think the way Americans generally think. They moved here from Iran or they moved here from Jamaica, and the whole mindset is different. And they can't think the way their friends think, much less think about something like the way I'm talking to them about dealing with your feelings, or examine what's going on inside you. They just can't. They're not ready to do that yet until down the road. And then it's just being sensitive. When people aren't responding, don't get hurt. Don't try to cram it down their throat. Just kind of back off and wait for them to come back.
My next question to you is actually about stopping. And when is it appropriate, or when do you think it's right for people to stop talking?
When you're not being heard. Unless you like just talk. Some people just like to argue or talk, or but if you're not getting anywhere, it's I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Because you don't want to talk about it, it doesn't mean I'm upset with you. If you ever want to talk about it in the future, I'm here.
Yeah. That's a very good point. Tom, that's pretty much all I have for you in terms of this discussion. I appreciate your input as always. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm glad I could share with you. Take care.
Thank you for enlightening me.